When I was 17, my mother drove me to the gates of the Vale family mausoleum in a borrowed black sedan that smelled faintly of cigarettes and cheap jasmine perfume, grabbed my wrist hard enough to leave finger marks, and said, "Remember every word I taught you." Leonard Vale had 4 children.
You are the 4th.
His money is yours by blood, and blood is the only thing rich people still respect. The truth was that my mother respected only money. She had respected Leonard Vale's private apartments, his polished cars, his silk ties, his assistant who arrived each month with envelopes, his ability to erase problems with a signature. She had not respected his wife, his marriage, his reputation, or his children. Most of all, she had never respected me. To her, I was proof that she had once reached above her station, and also proof that she had failed to hold on. "I do not want to go in there," I whispered. She opened my school bag, rummaged through it, and took my last coins, the bus card, even the folded $10 bill I had been saving for exam snacks. "You will want to come back," she said. "If you can come back easily, you will lose your nerve. I have mock exams tomorrow. Then come home rich enough to hire someone to sit them for you." It was early evening. Fog lay low among the pines behind the memorial hall. White flowers lined the stone path, and the departing guests moved like shadows under black umbrellas. In my frayed school uniform, I looked like a clerical error in a very expensive tragedy. My mother pushed me once lightly, but it was enough. "Don't come back empty-handed," she said. "If you fail today, do not bother calling me your mother." Then she got back into the car and drove away with my bus money, my house key, and the kind of certainty only cruel people possess. Inside the hall, Leonard Vale stared down from a giant black and white portrait, composed, distant, expensive. I had seen that face in magazines and finance pages all my life. It had never bent over my bed, signed a birthday card, or called my name except through other people's televisions. That face had never bent over my bed when I was sick. That hand had never signed a birthday card for me. That voice, if I heard it in my sleep, came from televisions and electronic shop windows. The funeral was over. The guests were leaving. At the front of the room, beneath the wreaths and the silver lamps, stood 3 people who were unmistakably his children, in the lawful, public, unquestioned sense. The eldest was Celeste Vale, the actress. She wore a plain black dress that somehow looked more expensive than anything I had ever touched. Even without makeup, or perhaps because she wore almost none, she was terrifyingly beautiful. She had the still face of someone who had trained every muscle to obey her. Next to her was Dr. Julian Vale, the prodigy the papers loved to call brilliant with the same delighted fear they used for storms. He had taken off his tie and folded it into a straight line on the table. Even grief, it seemed, had to stay organized around him. The last was Rowan Vale, the oldest of the brothers, and now, I knew from headlines, the acting head of the family's investment group. He had his hands in his pockets and the bored expression of a man who had sat through too many meetings, funerals included. Yet there was something electric about the way people kept glancing at him before they left, as if power made its own gravity. A lawyer was gathering folders nearby. This, my mother had said, was the perfect moment. No public audience, no cameras, no chance for the family to save face by throwing money just to silence me. If they insulted me, I was to cry. If they denied me, I was to collapse. If they called security, I was to shout "daughter" until the walls remembered it. Instead, when all 4 of them turned toward me at once, I forgot every speech I had memorized. I bowed by accident, like a student apologizing for existing.
"Hi, hello. Sorry.
I came for the inheritance." The lawyer blinked. Rowan actually stopped mid-breath. Celeste stared as if an unusual animal had wandered into a museum. Julian adjusted his glasses and looked at me more closely. Not with disgust, but with attention, which was somehow worse. I swallowed. "I mean, my mother said Mr. Vale had 4 children, and that means 1/4 belongs to me. And if it does not, that is probably all right. But if anyone could lend me bus fare instead, I would be grateful." She took my money. There was a silence so complete that I could hear the candles hiss. Then Celeste said, very softly, "Julian."
"Yes, tell me I'm hallucinating from grief."
Julian tilted his head. "Unlikely. She shares father's orbital bone structure and left-handed fidgeting. Probability of direct biological relation is high." Rowan rubbed a hand over his mouth as if hiding a smile in church. "Did you just diagnose paternity by skeleton? It is not a diagnosis. It is an observation." I was trembling so hard that my teeth knocked together. "If you want me to leave, I will go. I just need a little money for the bus, or a map, or a ride down the mountain. Walking is also fine." Celeste crossed the room in 3 long steps and stopped right in front of me. Up close, she smelled faintly of rain and expensive soap. Her gaze swept over my face, my collar, my wrists, my old shoes. It did not feel like the evaluation of an enemy. It felt like someone reading damage. "You are freezing," she said. "I'm fine. You are wearing a summer blouse in late autumn." "My mother says I run warm." "Your mother is an idiot." Rowan turned to the lawyer. Did father leave anything about this? The lawyer, who had recovered enough to become dignified again, opened the last unopened file in his case. There is. 1 sealed letter addressed to Mrs. Marianne Vale and the children. It was to be opened only if a biological claimant appeared in person without prior arrangement. Julian held out his hand. "Read it?" The lawyer unfolded the paper and cleared his throat. If the child named in the private records ever comes here herself, it means her mother has run out of money, patience, or both. Judge the child separately from the adults who made her. If she wants money, settle something fair. If she wants an education, give her that chance. If she wants nothing from us, let her leave with dignity. No one spoke. Then a woman's voice came from the doorway behind us, low and composed. Too late for dignity, she said. The poor thing arrived in that shirt. I turned. Marianne Vale was not what my mother had described. She had called her cold, rigid, bitter, vain, a woman who survived on social status and revenge. The woman in the doorway looked neither bitter nor fragile. She looked like the kind of person who could have run an empire if the world had let her bother. Her hair was pinned simply. She wore a black coat over a cream blouse. Nothing about her was loud. Nothing needed to be. Her eyes moved from the lawyer's letter to my face. Then she walked toward me.
You must be Tessa, she said.
No one had spoken my name inside that building until then. It nearly undid me.
Yes, madam.
I'm Marianne Vale.
I know.
Of course you do. She glanced toward the portrait once, and then back at me. You look exhausted.
Have you eaten? I said, the first safe answer that came to mind.
I am not hungry. She nodded as if I had said something expected but false. Celeste, take her home.
Julian, cancel whatever you intend to do tonight.
Rowan, stop alarming the child with your face. My face, Rowan said. You inherited your father's boardroom expression. It looks like tax fraud to schoolgirls. I stepped back. I can't go home with you. I only came because my mother made me. Marianne's expression changed. Not much, but enough. Tessa, I am not inviting your mother.
I am inviting you.
I do not belong there. Neither did your father half the time, yet he managed. The lawyer coughed, perhaps to hide a smile. Then Marianne did something I had not prepared defenses for. She held out her hand, not commanding, not pitying, simply offering. One night, she said, a bath, dinner, sleep, and a proper conversation tomorrow. After that, you may leave if you wish.
No conditions.
No traps. I stared at her hand. My mother's hand slapped, pulled, shook, searched pockets. Teachers' hands took homework, wrote red marks, closed doors. My own hands knew how to scrub dishes and hold still. Rowan, perhaps seeing the panic rise in me again, took a black card from his wallet and held it out with theatrical boredom. Alternative proposal. Call me brother once and I will put 50,000 in your account. Celeste smacked his arm. What is wrong with you? It is motivational. Julian peered at me. Do not say it yet. He will use it against you for years. I made a choking sound that turned into a laugh against my will. That tiny laugh broke something open. Marianne did not move her hand any closer. She simply waited. At last, because I was tired and hungry and 17 and had nowhere else to go, I put my hand in hers. Her palm was cool. Her grip was firm. And just like that, for the first time in my life, I entered the Vale house through the front door. The house was vast, glass and dark wood, and impossible quiet. The kind of place where even the air seemed expensive. I was not ready for the staircase, let alone the dining room. The table held more food than I had seen at once in years. Soup, fish, rice, fruit, bread still warm enough to soften under my fingers. Celeste noticed immediately. Sit. I can stand. Sit, she repeated gentler this time. I sat. The first bite nearly made me cry. It was only soup, but it was hot, balanced, and freely given. No one watched to see if I deserved it. So I ate too fast. I ate with the speed of a stray animal that has learned food can be taken away mid-bite. Spoon, bread, rice, fish, fruit, water, anything within reach. The room became a blur. I knew I looked awful. I knew it and could not stop. Then a hand landed lightly over mine. Celeste.
Tessa, she said quietly.
No one here will take the plate. I froze, spoon halfway to my mouth. Julian spoke without looking up from the tablet where he was apparently canceling something complicated. If you make yourself ill, Celeste will cry. Then the entire household will become unbearable. I will not cry, Celeste said.
You cried over an abandoned puppy advertisement.
It had one ear. Rowan leaned back in his chair. You are all missing the key point. She likes the sea bass. Put more of that near her and remove the chilies. I'm fine with chilies, I said automatically.
Are you? Marianne asked.
I looked at the red oil glistening on one dish and felt my throat remember old fire. No, I admitted in a whisper.
I do not like them.
Marianne nodded once to the staff. The chili dishes vanished. Not pushed aside. Not covered. Gone? Celeste saw that too. Without comment, she tore a piece of bread, buttered it, and put it on my plate as if this were the most ordinary thing in the world. Julian slid the bowl of plain rice closer. Rowan, unable to perform gentleness without sarcasm, said, There. We have eliminated all obvious enemies. After dinner, Celeste took me upstairs to a guest suite and stopped in the doorway as if realizing she should warn me before the room itself did. I thought she was joking until she opened the door. The room was larger than the apartment where my mother and I had lived. There was a proper bed, a desk, a bookshelf, a bath of pale stone, and folded clothes laid out on the coverlet as if someone had expected me. I stopped at the threshold. Celeste saw my face and misunderstood it at first. If you dislike the colors, we will change them tomorrow. No, I said. I am afraid I will ruin something. Something flashed across her expression. Anger, but not at me. Tessa, she said, turning fully toward me, you are not a stain. No one had ever said such a sentence to me before. It felt made of a language I had not been taught. Celeste walked to the wardrobe and opened it. More clothes. School uniforms in the correct size. Coats. Shoes. Socks arranged in careful pairs. Marianne had the housekeeper prepare basics after the funeral, she said. Just in case. Just in case what? Just in case you came one day. I stared at her. She knew about you, Celeste said. Not details, but enough to prepare. She said that if you ever appeared and any of us punished you for the circumstances of your birth, she would rewrite her will to include a donkey sanctuary. She prepared a room, not this exact room, but a place. Celeste's voice softened. She refused to discuss your mother, which is how I knew the subject mattered. She told us that if you ever appeared, and if any of us treated you cruelly for the circumstances of your birth, she would personally rewrite her will to include a donkey sanctuary instead. Celeste smiled for the first time that night, a real smile, brief and warm. Take your bath. Sleep. Tomorrow you may decide to hate all of us in daylight. When she left, I locked the bathroom door out of reflex. Then I stood in the middle of that impossible room and did not move for a very long time. The bathwater came out hot enough to steam the mirror. I had never controlled water with separate silver handles before. I had never owned shampoo that smelled like cedar and orange peel. I washed my hair twice because the first time felt like theft. When I came out, red-faced and dizzy, I folded my old uniform as neatly as I could and placed it on the chair because I could not bear for the staff to think poorly of me. Even lying down felt unfamiliar. The mattress was too soft, the room too quiet, the door too thick, the window too far from the alley sounds that used to tell me the hour. I slept in fragments, waking each time I forgot where I was. At 6 in the morning, I was already dressed in my old clothes again, afraid someone might decide the dream had gone on long enough. When I opened the door, Julian was sitting on the floor outside with a tray balanced on one knee and 3 sharpened pencils laid beside a notebook. I nearly screamed. He looked up, unsurprised.
Good.
You are awake.
Were you sleeping there? No?
I was calculating the probability that you would run before breakfast. And, hi. He lifted the tray. Porridge, eggs, sliced pear, tea. So I arrived early. He stood, brushed imaginary dust from his trousers, and peered at my face. You slept badly. I slept. Avoiding a statement is not the same as refuting it. He held out the tray.
Eat, then come with me.
I want to see your school records. You sound like a principal. That is slander. I am much worse. Despite myself, I followed him. Julian's study looked lived in rather than curated books in uneven towers, whiteboards full of formulas, 2 glowing screens, a telescope by the window, and a plant surviving on neglect. In the middle of the table lay my school file. On the central table lay my school file. I had not given it to him. He saw my stare. Marianne called your school at dawn. Your principal was alarmingly cooperative once Rowan's office identified itself. Julian flipped open the file. Your grades are erratic.
I know.
You score highest in reading comprehension, essay analysis, and geometry when the questions are visual. Your algebra is weak but not hopeless. Your chemistry teacher has written 3 times that you do not turn in homework yet. Answer oral questions correctly. This suggests domestic interference rather than inability. You make me sound like a broken machine. He looked at me with unexpected seriousness. No, a neglected one. He drew a page toward me and wrote an equation. Not high school level. Not impossible either. Once I stared long enough, do that? I can't. You can't yet. I worked slowly. He said nothing while I did, which helped. When I got stuck, he pushed a second sheet toward me and wrote only one hint. Draw it.
So I did.
By the time I solved the problem, the porridge had gone cold and the sky beyond the study had turned silver. Julian took the paper from me, read it, then smiled in a way that transformed his whole face from severe to almost boyish. This is bad news, he said. For me, for my schedule, you are teachable. Celeste fed me, clothed me, and declared war on every visible sign of neglect. She took one look at my hair, clicked her tongue, and summoned a stylist, a dermatologist, a nutritionist. And when she saw the faded scars along my forearm, a trauma therapist who did not ask cruel questions disguised as professional concern. Celeste hovered through all of it with the fierce concentration of someone restoring a stolen painting. She was vain, yes, but not about herself alone. She believed presentation was a language the world obeyed. Before they hear you, she told me while teaching me how to stand without folding inward, they see you. We are going to make sure what they see does not invite them to invent your worth. Julian attacked my education with cheerful severity. He discovered that I learned fastest through patterns and diagrams and rebuilt my study plan around that. He turned physics into stories, calculus into shapes, chemistry into kitchen disasters, and when I got things wrong, he asked, what assumption misled you, instead of acting as if mistakes were crimes. Rowan, meanwhile, decided my fear of money was an illness worth curing through exposure. He gave me a bank card in a pale pink envelope with my name embossed on it and said, "This is your allowance. I do not need an allowance. That was not the part requiring your input. I checked the balance and nearly dropped the card. There are too many zeros. That means the transfer was successful.
I can't take this.
Yes, you can.
Watch.
He placed the card back in my hand and folded my fingers around it.
Remarkable.
You have taken it.
When I still looked ready to faint, he drove me to one of the company's shopping centers and instructed a manager to let me choose anything I liked. I chose socks. He stared at me for so long that even the manager became embarrassed.
Socks, he repeated.
They are useful. I have failed as an educator. Then he bought me a wardrobe I had not asked for, sold most of it back 20 minutes later, showed me the headlines it generated, and used the resulting surge in one subsidiary's stock to prove a point. Money is a tool, he said, tapping the graph on his phone. Useful, dangerous, absurdly emotional in the hands of idiots, and only worth respecting when it buys time, safety, or freedom. Anyone who tells you money has moral value by itself either wants yours or wants you ashamed for not having enough. I listened because he was terrifying, but I remembered because, for the first time, someone spoke about money as if it belonged under my control instead of hanging over my head like weather. Marianne did not coddle me, which may be why I trusted her fastest. She had breakfast with me when she could, tea with me when she could not, and a way of making difficult truths sound survivable. She never asked me to defend my mother. She never praised Leonard Vale in my presence. He was complicated, she said once, while pruning roses with expensive brutality. That is the polite word history uses when powerful men are selfish but productive. Did you hate me when you first heard about me, I asked? She snipped a dead stem cleanly. No. I hated his audacity. There is a difference. But you let me come here. I let you come here because I have met far too many children raised as evidence. She set the shears aside and finally looked at me.
You are not evidence, Tessa.
You are a person. The first time I returned to school after moving into the Vale house, the world split cleanly into before and after. Before, I had been the girl with peeling shoes, uncertain lunches, and a mother who made public scenes. Boys called me charity case on mild days and worse things on others. Girls who had once been kind learned that my life came with collateral damage. After, I arrived in Rowan's driver's car because Julian had insisted the bus stop was a stupid distance from the main gate, and because Celeste claimed sunlight improved my skin tone if I did not sweat first. I got out in a clean uniform tailored to fit, with polished shoes, a proper coat, a backpack that zipped without catching, and most dangerous of all, the posture Celeste had drilled into me. It should have made me invisible in a different way. Instead, it made everyone stare. At first, I thought it was the car. Then Leela Mercer, who had once lent me notes and later pretended not to know me in hallways, came down the steps with two of her friends and said, too brightly, Tessa,
Is that really you? It usually is on weekdays.
Her friends laughed because they did not know whether I was allowed jokes now. Leela's gaze flicked to the car still waiting at the curb. Who brought you, my brother? You do not have a brother? I have 3, apparently. This should have sounded ridiculous. It did not, because at that exact moment, Julian, who had insisted on delivering some extra textbooks in person, stepped out of the car with his arms full of papers and looked around the courtyard as if comparing it unfavorably with prison architecture. The reaction among my classmates was almost embarrassing to witness. Julian Vale was the kind of local legend schools claimed whenever alumni lists got thin. His face had been on Science magazine covers. His exam scores were cited like weather records.
Teachers said Julian Vale the way priests said miracle.
He crossed the courtyard without noticing anyone but me. You forgot the probability workbook, he said. Then he looked at the group standing around me and added, with perfect calm, good.
Witnesses.
Please remind her to eat lunch, or Celeste will blame me. He handed me the books, nodded once to the stunned crowd, and left. For several seconds, no one moved. Then someone behind Lila whispered, That is actually Julian Vale. Lila recovered first.
You are joking.
I almost never joke before noon. The bell rang. I went to class holding my books like armor. Things did not become magically easy after that. People were kinder, but curiosity has edges too. Some classmates wanted proximity to the Vale name more than to me, and others assumed money had solved everything. Still, the open cruelty faded, which was more peace than I had known before. Julian called that a morally disappointing but efficient outcome. At home, I studied until my head hurt, and then studied a little more because effort now had somewhere to land. Once, when Julian found me falling asleep over a mock exam at 2 a.m, he took the pen from my hand and said, Even machines require maintenance. I'm behind. You are recovering. There is a difference. I do not want to waste this. That made him pause. He sat opposite me, elbows on knees, and regarded me with a gentleness he usually hid under impatience. Tessa, he said, you are not a scholarship fund someone might revoke for insufficient gratitude. You are family. Those are not points earned. They are conditions accepted. The word family still frightened me. It felt too large and too warm, like standing too close to a fire after years in the cold, but each time they used it, something inside me thawed a little further. The first real crack in the new life came 2 weeks later. Celeste was taking me to a posture class she insisted would undo years of apologizing with your shoulders when my mother appeared out of a side street and caught my arm before I saw her. Her nails dug in with practiced precision. I smelled old perfume, stale smoke, and panic. "You look expensive," she said. I froze. Celeste had gone back to move the car after dropping me near the studio entrance. We were alone in the narrow lane beside the building. My mother looked me up and down, taking in the coat, the bag, the shoes. Her expression was not maternal pride. It was hunger.
"So," she said.
"They bought the packaging.
"Good."
Now where's the money?" I tried to pull free. "There is not any inheritance." She slapped me. The force of it turned my head and sent my shoulder into the wall. I tasted metal. She had hit me often enough that pain arrived first as recognition, then as sensation. Old habits are efficient that way. "Don't lie to me," she hissed. "If they kept you, it means you're useful. Useful means profitable. I am not useful to them. Then be useful to me." Her voice dropped lower. "1 week, bring me cash or documents or account access. Anything. If you do not, I will go to the press. I will tell them the Great Vale family keeps a mistress's daughter hidden like a pet. I will tell them their actress loves scandal at home. Their genius brother shares a roof with illegitimate girls. Their market prince launders shame with charity. I will rot their names from the edges inward." I stared at her, not because the threat surprised me, but because it did not. She saw my silence and mistook it for weakness.
You think they will protect you. They will protect themselves.
Rich people always do. Then she smiled a terrible, familiar smile. "Unless you become the problem first." By the time Celeste found us, my mother had already vanished into the street. She took one look at my face and went absolutely still. Celeste's stillness was worse than yelling. It meant calculation. "Who?" she asked. "It does not matter." "Tessa." I had thought, on the bus rides of my childhood, that if I ever found my father's legal family, I would protect myself from them. Instead, standing in that alley with a rising bruise and a throat full of shame, I realized I wanted to protect them from me. "She will make trouble," I said. "She always does." I should leave before Celeste cut across me so sharply I fell silent. Do not finish that sentence with self-sacrifice unless you're actively on fire. I started crying. It was humiliating, unstoppable, and possibly the most honest thing I had done all week. Celeste exhaled and pulled me into her coat. "There," she murmured, one hand on the back of my head.
"That is right."
Cry first, heroics later. Back at the house, Rowan listened without interrupting, which meant he was angrier than if he had smashed something. Julian asked exactly 3 questions. "Did she touch you anywhere else? Did anyone record it? Did you tell her anything useful?" Marianne said very little at all, but sent for the family attorney before tea arrived. "I knew she would come," Marianne said at last. "I did not expect her to wait this long." "You knew?" I asked. "I know her type." Marianne's mouth thinned. "Women like that often believe disgrace is transferable. It never is, but they can do damage while trying." I folded my hands together to stop them shaking.
"Then I should go."
Rowan gave a short, humorless laugh.
"There it is."
The absurd conclusion. "She is right about one thing," I said. "If I stay, she will keep using me against you." Julian leaned forward. "No, she will keep trying to use you against us. That is not the same thing. Successful use requires our cooperation, which she does not have."
"You do not understand."
My mother does not stop. "Good," Rowan said. "Neither do we." Marianne looked at me for a long moment. "Tessa, before you decide whose burden you imagine yourself to be, there is something you should know." She rose and left the room. When she returned, she carried a flat leather box. Inside lay a ring, a stack of letters tied with ribbon, and one sealed envelope with my name written on it in a delicate, unmistakably feminine hand. "It is not from Leonard," Marianne said. "It is from me. Or rather, from a version of me who wrote it years ago and was wise enough to plan for the future." I opened it with numb fingers. "If you're reading this, Marianne had written, then you came at last. You owe us nothing for the choices of adults. Stay long enough to learn what safety feels like. After that, choose distance or family as you wish. The only thing forbidden under my roof is humiliation disguised as discipline. You owe us nothing. Not gratitude, not silence, not resemblance, not compensation for our father's choices. But if the world has been unkind to you because of him, then I have a proposal. Stay long enough to learn what safety feels like. After that, decide for yourself whether you prefer distance or family. Both will be respected. The only thing forbidden under my roof is humiliation disguised as discipline." I read the letter twice because my eyes blurred after the first time. Below the page was a small note added later in different ink. "Celeste will spoil you. Julian will overteach you. Rowan will bribe you. Let them. They love badly at first, but they do love." I laughed through tears. "Marianne," I said, looking up. "When did you write this?" "The first draft, 11 years ago." She touched the ring box lightly. "After your mother appeared at one of Leonard's properties and security informed me there was a pregnancy involved. I had no intention of raising another woman's child for his sake. But I was willing to prepare for yours. Why? Because I met your mother for 7 minutes and decided any child of hers might one day require an escape route. No one tried to comfort me after that. They gave me the more useful thing, certainty." The next morning, Rowan filed for a restraining order. Julian had cameras added to every approach road. Celeste quietly changed my class schedule so I would never leave campus alone. Marianne hired a legal investigator whose entire manner suggested he had retired from frightening people only because private work paid better. Meanwhile, life went on. I took exams. I learned the names of all the staff because Celeste said affection begins with accuracy. I stopped hiding bread in my coat pocket after Marianne found crumbs under a sofa cushion and said only, "We can keep emergency snacks in a basket if that makes you feel safer." Julian discovered I liked astronomy because stars obeyed no family politics. He began taking me up to the observatory on the West Terrace on clear nights. There, under cold air and mechanical silence, he showed me how to focus the telescope, how to read coordinates, how light carried age within it. "Some stars we see are already dead," I said once.
Yes.
"And the light still arrives." He looked at me sideways. "You are not talking about stars." "No." Then my answer remains yes. I started calling him from the observatory on sleepless nights. We talked about equations, grief, and how genius in his opinion was mostly disciplined obsession with good publicity. He admitted he hated interviews, loved terrible detective novels, and once built a drone swarm at 13 because Rowan had stolen his dessert. "Did it work?" I asked. "It followed him through the garden chanting thief." I laughed so hard tea came out my nose. Celeste, for her part, decided I needed a birthday. "I had birthdays," I protested. "You survived dates. That is not the same thing." My 18th birthday arrived in winter, cold and blue. I came downstairs expecting breakfast and found the entire East Salon transformed. Flowers, candles, music too soft to embarrass me, and on the long table a small cake covered in white icing and sugared violets. Not extravagant, not public, just deliberate. I stopped at the door. Celeste emerged from behind the cake, holding a ridiculous tiara. "Don't argue. It is irony. It looks real. It is real. That is the irony." Julian appeared with a rectangular box under one arm. Rowan stood near the fireplace, expression carefully casual, which meant he had almost certainly orchestrated half of it and was pretending not to care. Marianne kissed my forehead. "Happy birthday, Tessa." No one had ever said those words to me without ulterior motive. I cried before anyone even lit the candles. "Excellent," Rowan said to the ceiling. "Now I owe Celeste $50. I told her the crying would start before cake. "Monster," Celeste muttered, but she was smiling. Their gifts were exactly themselves. Celeste gave me a leather-bound album full of the months since I arrived. Me asleep over textbooks, me in an apron in the kitchen, me laughing on the terrace, me alive in ways I had never seen myself before. "Proof," she said. "For days when your memory lies to you." Julian gave me a silver mechanical pencil, and with it, a written study plan for the university entrance examinations broken into hourly progressions, so elegant I almost admired the madness of it. Tucked in the back was a second page, handwritten and entirely unexpected. "You are not behind. You started from farther away." Rowan handed me a thin folder. "Mine is practical." Inside were legal documents naming a trust in my sole name, not tied to Leonard Vale's estate, but funded privately by the 3 siblings and Marianne. Designated for education, housing, travel, or any venture I might one day choose. Attached was a debit card. I looked at him helplessly. "This is too much."
No.
Rowan said. "Too much was what you lived through before we found you." Then Marianne opened a small velvet box. Inside lay the ring from the leather case, simple and old-fashioned, a narrow band set with a tiny sapphire. "It was my grandmother's," she said. "I'm not giving it to you as lineage. I dislike forced symbolism. I'm giving it to you because it survived 3 wars, 2 exiles, 1 flood, and a truly unfortunate marriage, and I think it would appreciate your company." I could not speak. When I finally blew out the candles, I did not make a wish. For once, reality was gentler than imagination. I should have known that happiness attracts retaliation. 3 days later, my mother disappeared from the small apartment where she had been hiding. The investigator found traces of hurried packing, unpaid debts, and recent contact with a freelance entertainment reporter, famous for selling scandal to the highest bidder. Rowan doubled security. Celeste canceled a magazine shoot to stay close. Julian began sleeping even less than usual, which I had not thought medically possible. "She won't stop until she can't profit anymore," he said. I hated how calm he sounded. Calm meant he had moved beyond worry into strategy. The crisis came through the one door none of us had fully sealed, my compassion. A message arrived from an unknown number while I was at school. It contained only 4 words: "Your mother is bleeding." Attached was a photo, my mother on a hospital chair, arm in a sling, face pale, looking straight into the camera with theatrical misery. Below it, "She won't let us treat her unless you come."
Old South Clinic.
Alone? I knew better. I went anyway. I told myself I was not being foolish. I was gathering evidence, ending uncertainty, proving to myself that concern had finally died. The lie lasted until I got out of the taxi. Old South Clinic was not a clinic anymore. It was an abandoned private practice waiting for redevelopment. One of those narrow city buildings left to mildew under faded signs. The front entrance was locked. A woman in scrubs waved from the side alley and said, "Family of Ms.
Win. This way.
By the time I realized the scrubs were wrong too clean, no badge, wrong shoes, someone had already covered my mouth from behind. I bit hard enough to taste blood. A man swore. Another grabbed my wrists. They shoved me through a side door and up a stairwell that smelled of dust and mold. The room at the top had once been an office. Now it held one table, 3 plastic chairs, a camera tripod, and my mother. She was not bleeding. She was furious.
"You made me hire idiots," she said by way of greeting.
My heart dropped so sharply I almost laughed from shock.
"What is this? Leverage."
One of the men forced me into a chair. Another tied my wrists. My mother checked the position of the camera with the concentration of someone arranging flowers. "You're going to record a message," my mother said. "You will say you came willingly, that you are frightened, and that the veils will get you back when they transfer 30 million, not 50. I am being reasonable. This is kidnapping. This is motherhood under economic pressure." I stared at her. "You would rather go to prison than work." That was the wrong thing to say. She hit me with the back of her hand hard enough to split the inside of my lip. "Don't speak to me like them. You are mine before you are theirs." Something cold settled inside me then. Not fear. Clarity. "No," I said, blood on my tongue. "You never wanted me. You wanted access." Her face changed. For one instant I saw not anger but offense, as if truth were the cruelest insult I could have offered her. She stepped forward, gripping my jaw. "Listen carefully. After today, whether they pay or not, you're finished with them. Scandal sticks. Rich people forgive privately and discard publicly. I know that world better than you do." I remembered Marianne's letter. Celeste's hands fixing my collar. Julian's note, Rowan's infuriating bank card. A room prepared years before I had the courage to walk into it. Then I laughed. My mother released me as if I had gone mad. "What is funny, you still do not understand them at all." I said it softly, but it was enough. She slapped me again and ordered the men to start filming. They never got that far. The door downstairs burst open with a violence that shook dust from the ceiling. Shouting followed men, multiple, controlled, not panicked. One of my kidnappers swore and ran toward the stairwell. He made it halfway down before a body hit the wall hard enough to rattle the frame. My mother spun toward the noise. "What did you do?" I smiled through blood. "I'm wearing a Veil family emergency tracker. It was disguised as an ordinary charm on the bracelet Celeste insisted I wear because it matched everything. Julian had designed the alert sequence himself after the threats began. Press 3 times against the clasp, hold 5 seconds, release. Silent signal, location burst, live audio stream. I had activated it when the false nurse touched my shoulder outside. The next 10 seconds were chaos. The door flew inward. Security entered first. Rowan entered with them. I had never seen him look like that. Not angry anger is human and visible. He looked stripped down to intention. His gaze went to my face, my tied wrists, the camera, my mother. Something in the room's temperature seemed to collapse. Behind him came 2 police officers and, unbelievably, Julian in shirt sleeves, hair disordered. Carrying something metallic I later learned was a portable jammer he had insisted on bringing in case they tried to stream the ransom. My mother took one look at the men with Rowan and grabbed the tripod as if it might become a weapon or shield. "Stay back." Rowan did not even look at her. "Auntie, my sister?" No one moved. He spoke again, this time to security. "Remove everyone standing between me and my sister." The next seconds were chaos. One man hit the floor before I fully saw him move. Another surrendered at once. My mother kept screaming that it was a family misunderstanding while Julian cut the rope from my wrists and Rowan wrapped his coat around my shoulders. Julian was beside me almost immediately, cutting the rope at my wrists with a tool from his pocket. His hands shook only once, when he saw the blood on my mouth. "You are late," I said, because terror had tipped over into absurdity. He stared at me, then made a sound halfway between a laugh and a broken breath.
I left a laboratory mid-experiment for you.
"Be grateful." Rowan shrugged off his coat and wrapped it around my shoulders before turning at last to my mother. There should have been shouting. There should have been threats. There should have been something theatrical to match her life. Instead, he said, very clearly, "You will never stand close enough to hurt her again." It was not a threat. It was a sentence. The police took statements. The camera, the fake clinic messages, the rented men, the attempted ransom, all of it became evidence. My mother tried several versions of herself in under an hour. Weeping victim, misunderstood parent, desperate woman, manipulated accomplice. None survived contact with facts. Celeste arrived last because she had been on set when Julian called. She came in still wearing part of a costume, eyeliner half removed, rage so bright it made everyone else careful. She crouched in front of me and touched my chin with trembling fingers. "You are bleeding," she said.
I have done that before.
Don't be clever when I'm trying not to collapse. Then, because we were in a disused clinic surrounded by police and criminal idiocy, she burst into tears exactly the way Julian had once predicted she would. I had to laugh again, which made her cry harder, which made Julian leave the room to speak to an officer because, as Rowan later said, he could solve differential equations but not female emotion in concentrated form. The kidnapping should have been the climax. In some lives, it would have been. In mine, it was only the moment the old life finally lost all legal claim to continue. My mother was charged. The men she hired cooperated fast when they learned who they had offended and how little she had actually paid them. The entertainment reporter she had been negotiating with sold the story anyway, but now it was a story of attempted extortion and abuse, not scandalous illegitimacy hidden by a noble family. The public, as Rowan liked to say, has no moral consistency but excellent appetite. Within days, the narrative shifted in ways my mother had never anticipated. Not, secret daughter endangers high-profile family. Instead, abused teenager targeted for ransom after being recognized by father's lawful family. Not, actress shelters scandal. Instead, actress, scientist, and businessman rescue half-sister from violent mother. I hated seeing my history turned into headlines, even sympathetic ones. Celeste asked whether I wanted to disappear from the story entirely. Rowan said he could erase 90% of digital spread within 48 hours if that was my choice. Julian, predictably, suggested a statistical model for long-term reputational decay. For the first time, I chose something without fear. No, I said. Let me speak once. They all stared.
You do not have to, Marianne said carefully.
I know.
But I want to. So, a week later, sitting in a quiet room with one camera and no audience, I told the truth. I said that children are not compensation for adult ambition. I said that poverty could be survived, but humiliation repeated for years became a second skin. I said that rescue was not always dramatic. Sometimes it looked like being taught to choose what you wanted for dinner and being believed when you said no. And I said I was grateful not for one shining act, but for the daily return of ordinary dignity. The video spread further than any scandal would have. Girls my age sent messages. Teachers wrote, "Women twice Marianne's age thanked her in public essays." Financial commentators in a development Rowan found hilarious praised his family first crisis management as if compassion were a market strategy. My mother, from custody, tried to sue for emotional damages. Marianne responded by sending fruit to the prison infirmary and instructing the legal team to proceed without mercy. Spring arrived. I sat the university entrance examinations in a hall full of other students whose hands shook for reasons far simpler than mine. Julian waited outside with tea. Celeste wore sunglasses too large for the weather and claimed she was incognito, though 3 people recognized her in the first 10 minutes. Rowan sent exactly one text, break the curve. When I came out after the final paper, I looked up and saw all of them there, Marianne included, elegant as always, holding a paper bag from the bakery near campus because she remembered I liked their lemon buns. How was it? Julian asked immediately. Celeste elbowed him.
Wrong first question.
It is the most relevant one. No, Marianne said. The first question is whether she wants to talk about it at all. I laughed, tired and giddy and suddenly light. It was hard, I said, but not impossible. Julian's face lit with such fierce pride that I had to look away. Months later, when the results were released, I did not scream. I sat on the edge of my bed staring at the screen until the numbers rearranged themselves into meaning. National ranking. Scholarship. Admission to the university I had only ever seen from outside its gates. Then I screamed. Celeste screamed back from the hallway because she thought I was dying. Julian nearly broke the doorknob getting in. Rowan, arriving 5 seconds later with all the useful urgency of someone who had once negotiated hostile acquisitions, demanded, "What happened?" I turned the laptop toward them. Silence. Then Celeste actually jumped on my bed in a silk blouse like an overexcited teenager and nearly broke both of us. Julian kept repeating my score as if verifying experimental data. Rowan walked out, made 2 phone calls, and by sunset had arranged a dinner for 20 at the hotel where my mother used to point at chandeliers and say, "People like us only get in there by carrying trays." Marianne did not raise her voice. She simply kissed my hair and said, "Well done, Tessa." That was the praise I carried longest. The final legal severing came in an office lined with files and ferns. My mother, finally advised by someone practical, agreed to relinquish every future claim in exchange for a settlement Rowan described as the cost of never hearing from her again. Marianne considered it money well spent. The lawyer slid the final papers toward me. "You may also, if you wish, amend your legal name now that you're 18. Everyone looked at me. My birth name had been Tessa Wynn because my mother wanted no reminder of the man who refused to make her legitimate. Yet every time she screamed it, the name curdled. It belonged to the version of me that flinched before reaching for bread. "Do I have to take Veil?" I asked.
No, Marianne said immediately.
"You can keep yours," Celeste added. "You can choose anything," Julian said. "Statistically, people overestimate the importance of continuity." "Please do not make this a statistic speech," Rowan muttered. I thought of Marianne's letter. I thought of the ring on my finger. I thought of the girl in the funeral hall asking for bus money. "I want Veil," I said. No one spoke for a second. Then Rowan leaned back in his chair with the satisfied look of a man winning an argument no one else knew had been ongoing. Celeste covered her mouth with both hands. Julian removed his glasses, which was the closest he came to visible emotion in public. Marianne simply nodded once, but her eyes shone.
Then write it, she said.
"So I did." Tessa Vale. The first time I signed it, my hand shook. The second time, it steadied. By the third, it felt less like theft and more like arrival. That autumn, I left for university with 2 suitcases, a scholarship, and enough sweaters from Celeste to clothe a minor embassy. Julian gave me maps and schedules. Rowan ordered me to call before disaster, and Marianne hid emergency cash in 3 different bags. At the station, just before I boarded, Celeste gripped my shoulders and said, "Remember that homesickness is allowed." Martyrdom is not. Julian handed me a folder titled Things You Will Forget If Left Unsupervised. Inside were campus maps, meal schedules, study calendars, and, on the last page, one sentence in neat handwriting: "You belong wherever your effort takes root." Rowan hugged me last and said into my hair, very quietly, "No one gets to make you feel borrowed again." I cried on the train, of course. But they were good tears, the sort that do not empty you out. They make room. In my second year, I stood on a stage to receive an academic award and spotted them all in the audience. Celeste in red, impossible to miss. Julian pretending not to hate the crowd. Rowan checking messages during speeches he considered inefficient. Marianne beside them, elegant and amused, as if she had expected this all along. When my name was announced, Tessa Vale, I walked to the podium without lowering my eyes. People say blood makes a family. They are wrong often enough that the sentence should be retired. Blood made me vulnerable. Choice made me safe. A dead man's guilt opened a door. A woman he betrayed kept it unlocked. 3 impossible siblings, each loving in their own absurd language, taught me that belonging was not something one begged for at funerals or bought with obedience or bled for in alleys. Belonging, I learned, is what remains after fear has spent itself and no one sends you away. Sometimes on winter evenings when campus goes quiet, I still call the observatory at the Vale House. Julian answers if he is awake. Celeste answers if she has stolen his line to complain about a director. Rowan answers only by mistake and then stays on anyway. Marianne occasionally answers first, already knowing what I have not yet said. "How is the sky tonight?" she asks. And because I know now that the question means more than weather, I tell her the truth. "Clear," I say. "Very clear."